Hello, and welcome to Together Through It, Wisdom from Unexpected Journeys. In each episode, we share stories from families whose lives took an unexpected turn. Our hope is that by sharing their experiences, you'll find inspiration, discover sources of support, and recognize that even in life's most difficult moments, joy, connection, and purpose can still be found. I'm Angela Paxton, a wife, a daughter, a mother to two extraordinary young women, and an advocate for people with disabilities. I'm also a research professional at a large Midwestern university specializing in early autism detection. My hope is that this podcast will educate, inspire, and remind you that none of us has to navigate life's challenges alone as we journey together through it. And today, I have a very special guest in the studio. Dr. Bridget Lueken is with us. We've known each other, how long? I think I was in the support group for now about 20 years. When did you join the group, Bridget?
I joined in 2008.
Okay.
So 18
So maybe
years.
right after I did. So about 18, 19 years. Okay, great. So let me tell you a little bit about Bridget. She is, like I said, a very good friend. She is a doctor, an educator, a mom to 8 children. 3 of them have autism. She is a fierce advocate for people with disabilities. And quite frankly, we could probably spend 8 hours today talking about her amazing family. But we'll probably focus a little bit more directly today and focus on just a few of her children. We're going to be focusing a little bit on a topic that's very near and dear to both of our hearts. Transition from high school to the adult world. That's going to come up quite a bit today, and I think you'll find that very interesting. Bridget, let's talk a little bit more about how we met. Talk about the support group. So we would meet weekly, right? And we would write, which was very therapeutic, very cathartic. We would talk. We would laugh. There was some crying. We would share resources every week. So I would learn from these fellow moms who were navigating this journey. And Bridget was such an incredible resource to me then and still is. She started this journey just a little before I did, although she's a little younger than I am. She went through some of these things before I did. Her kids are just slightly older. So thank you for that, Bridget. But the story I love to tell is one night we're at support group, maybe Thursday night, and Bridget looked at us and she said, "You guys, y'all have caregivers at home, right? Your spouses, your mom, your grandparents. Why don't we go out?"
I would like to say for the record that this was the first time I attended the support group.
Oh, it was the first time?
I was
okay.
a single parent. I had to get someone to watch my kids. I drive halfway across town, and the meeting lasted 60 to 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're all going home at 8:30.
It took more work to get there than 90 minutes was warranted. And I looked at all these women. I said, wait, like, it's bedtime. Why would we ever go home and interrupt that? There is a bar across the street.
Yeah.
Let's go have a drink and talk a little more. So I think that I get credit or blame for changing that piece of our writing group. But I do think that helped us, just that extra time that was not structured really helped us develop those friendships that then we've carried for so long.
I agree. Thank you for bringing that up. Great idea. Truly a tradition. Well, let's get started with our interview. Bridget, tell us more about you. Give us a little background, and then we'll talk about your family.
So this is such a difficult question to answer because so much of our identity, especially our identity of women, is wrapped up in our relationship to other people. And so initially, if someone asked me, who are you? It's either what I do for work or what I do in relationship to others. So I really kind of wanted to dig down. I would say, first of all, that I'm kind of a fighter, whether it's fighting for other people or just for what I feel is right. I love adventure and the outdoors. I would say I'm probably a lifelong learner. I love to read. I love to write. And more recently, I'm a gardener. I have a gardener.
Okay.
I have a garden now, which
Nice.
I love. I and the founder and CEO of Empower Consulting, which focuses on that transition to life after high school. And then in addition, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. I have 8 brothers and sisters. I am a wife to my smoking hot husband, who is my favorite person on earth. And then I'm a mother to our 8 children who are tied for my second favorite people on earth. And then professionally, my company is new, but I'm also an educator. So I have been working in the education and disability field since 2009. I started as a Japanese teacher. I earned my doctorate in curriculum and instruction and have taught higher ed. I've taught every grade from kindergarten to master's. And have also worked as a behavior consultant for the waiver. And currently, my current role, I teach at a suburban high school. I teach vocational skills to juniors and seniors with disabilities.
Wonderful. Busy life. Let's focus now more on your kids. Tell us about your children.
So my husband and I have a blended family. He has 4 daughters, Sonia, Melissa, Erica, and Jenna. They have added so much joy and just knowledge to my life. They really have made my life so much fuller and better than it ever could have been if they had never been part of it. And I've learned so much from them. I also have a daughter, Hannah, who's 27. Elliot's 26. Zachary is 22. And the baby of all is Maya, who is 20.
Can you share a moment with us, thinking back, when you knew something might be different? Maybe let's talk about Elliot. When you knew things were going to take a different path.
So, when I was reflecting on these questions in preparation for today, I realized almost everything happened around the same time. So in 2005, I was pregnant with Maya, and Zachary developed a fever and began having seizures. And he started to lose some language. So later that same year, Hannah was diagnosed with ADHD. She was later diagnosed with autism. And also a month before Maya was born, Elliot was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So everything kind of happened. And then Maya was born in December. So everything kind of happened in 2005.
What led to that diagnosis of diabetes? Was there anything that you noticed, or was this in a well visit?
So Elliot turned 5 in October, and he had been potty trained for a very long time. And we noticed he started having accidents. And that was just very strange and unlike him. One of my best friends had a daughter with diabetes, and then Elliot's dad actually worked for a company that made diabetes testing supplies. So about a month later, when the accidents kept happening, I told him to bring a meter home from work, and he tested his blood sugar, and it was like 569, which is supposed to be high, between 80 and 120. And his dad's first reaction was, well, the meter must be faulty. I'm like, this is your product, man. So I was pregnant, so we had no idea how that would impact my blood sugar. And I said, why don't you test yours? And his was within normal range, and he had just eaten. And so we knew that it was not great. And so I waited until the next morning. Actually, I called a pediatrician and let them know. And, you leave a message on the pediatrician's voicemail, and you feel like that's just going into a black pit of nothing, right? Well, someone called me within 7 minutes.
Oh, that's amazing.
And said, where's the child? We need you to bring the child to the emergency room now. And so we took him, and he was diagnosed almost immediately And thankfully we had caught it relatively early, so he was not like, there was no damage to anything. But so that started a very long journey of managing blood sugar for Elliot.
And then with Zach, when was that diagnosis? So you said...
so Zachary started having seizures when he was about 15 months
Okay.
old. He does not have seizures anymore. But we noticed some challenges, especially with his language development. He began receiving services through First Steps shortly after his second birthday, but it was very different then. This was 20 years ago. So he was not diagnosed until he was about 3.5.
And Bridget, go back. Tell us about First Steps for the listeners who haven't heard of First Steps. Talk about that program briefly.
So special education is all funded through the same law, and there is a part of the law that provides funding for individuals birth to age 3. And so in Indiana, that program is called First Steps. It can be called different things in different states. Someone will come out to your home, assess your child in, I think it's 4 different developmental areas, and based on their performance, they will recommend and then provide services in home. They also will go to daycares based on that evaluation.
Thanks for that. We'll put some information about First Steps and special education in the show notes. Do you want to focus now on Zach or Elliot, or where would you like to go next?
Just briefly, I feel like the pathway to diagnosis is much clearer now than it was 20 years ago, and I'm very grateful for that. When Zachary was diagnosed and we received a list of the diagnostic criteria for autism, I read them and I'm like, Elliot does all of these things. So he just did not have a global language delay. And I said, and their older sister does too. And so Elliot was diagnosed about a year chronologically after Zachary, but it wasn't until he was 8 years old. And then Hannah was diagnosed after that. She was 9.5.
And what clinician diagnosed Elliot and Hannah?
Elliot was diagnosed initially through the school.
Oh.
And then we took that to Dr. Escobar, who was a pediatric geneticist. And then that's who also diagnosed Hannah. And that's who diagnosed Zachary initially as well.
And Bridget, could you share also with the listeners the difference in diagnosis at the school versus one by a clinician, and why that's important to get a diagnosis through a clinician?
Autism is a neurological disorder, and so it's very important to get a medical diagnosis, because a diagnosis through a school psychologist, while important and it will provide access to services, it is not a medical diagnosis, and so it doesn't necessarily open up those same doors for additional services in the community.
Like therapies like ABA and other services?
Correct.
I gotcha. Thank you.
And in order for someone to be diagnosed with autism in the school setting, it has to be impacting their education to a certain degree that, you can prove that there's an educational impact. And actually, my oldest has never been diagnosed with autism through the school system because it did not impact her learning to a large enough degree.
And is it 2 different pieces? So it's not just education, but is it functional also they're looking at? Am I saying that correctly?
At school?
Yeah.
It can be, but there's a checklist of how it needs to impact you. So Hannah actually already had an IEP at that time, and they said that she just didn't meet the criteria to add the additional eligibility category.
So now you have the children diagnosed. What were some of the next steps that you took as a family?
So I think as this was happening, the biggest thing for me was trying to keep everyone moving forward. Mm-hmm. So when Zachary was initially diagnosed, at that time, no daycare would take him because of his behavior. So I had worked in marketing prior to having children and was staying at home. Shortly after Zachary was diagnosed, like within a year after Zachary was diagnosed, their father and I got divorced. And so as a single parent, just trying to make ends meet and also help the kids, I actually got a job teaching Japanese at a local middle school because they were in the process of taking Japanese out of the middle school and just having it at the high school. And so it was a very short day, so I could take him to developmental preschool, go teach, and come back and pick him up before it was over.
That's a full day.
So through that, being in education, I think, was a huge benefit for me, because students who learned differently started gravitating towards me as a Japanese teacher. And so when that Japanese program ended, I actually went back to school and got my master's in special education and kind of jumped all the way into the disability arena.
So you could apply that education to not only your future work, but your home life as well for your kids.
Right.
So now, how old is Zach now when you're getting your degree? He's still in elementary school?
I graduated in 2012, so Zachary was 8.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the biggest challenges with school? And how did you
So I'm very grateful.
overcome those?
The educators we had, especially at the elementary level, were phenomenal. And once the children had their IEPs, it was like, okay, so their diagnosis does not determine their services. It just opens the door to the services. And then the needs should drive those services. And they were very good at working with me at what they were seeing, what they weren't seeing, and what they thought could help. So actually, Zachary was a cutting edge person, because they actually created a completely new program at his school. And he was like patient zero. He was the first student in that program. And that really helped him a lot, where he was in the general education classroom, but then he could come out because his sensory needs were so great. He just couldn't handle being in a classroom with 25 other kids sitting still for that long. And then also he was diagnosed with dyslexia, but not until he was a little older. But I saw those challenges with him learning to read early on. And so he needed that additional support as well.
And how did this journey affect your other relationships in your life? You talked about the divorce. You brought up the divorce, but how did that affect you? You have a very large family. How did that affect your relationships with your family, with your friends, your church life? How did having Zach and Elliot, your other kids, how did that affect other relationships?
I think initially it was very isolating.
Mm-hmm.
It was very difficult to continue in play groups that worked fine for Hannah and Elliot. But then Zachary just couldn't really interact with his peers appropriately at a young age. And so you just got to the point where there were only certain people that, you really felt comfortable having your children around. And, if you were going to go somewhere, you wanted to get there early, because waiting was not anyone's strong suit. And you just really had to plan your day around all the things that could possibly go wrong. But on the flip side of that, I was determined that none of my children would lose out on what I felt like their experience should be. And so we still went, even though it was exhausting. And I remember my husband now, when we were first dating, we met with our kids at the Children's Museum. And his daughters, I think, were 7 and 4 at the time. And Erica would have her arm around Mark's leg, like staying that close to him. And then Jenna would have her arms around Erica. And that's how they interacted at the museum. So it was just this small group, going from,
each exhibit
to exhibit, or even just, we were in playscapes, right? So there's a water table and a sand table and a train, and I'm standing by the door playing zone defense, just making sure that none of my children run out the door. And he, meanwhile, has these 2 perfect little girls that just followed him from spot to spot. And I was like, and he told me later, I would never leave my house.
Yeah.
If I were you, I would be in the fetal position on the floor somewhere. And I thought, but that's not fair to any of the kids. It's not fair to the youngest who didn't have autism, but it's also, they deserve to be everywhere that their peers are.
Exactly.
It was a little exhausting.
But he came back.
Yeah. So, and
it didn't scare him away, which is great. That says a lot right there.
Yeah. So after my divorce, you think no one's gonna love what you're bringing to the table, and I was very fortunate that I met a person who loves adventure and the outdoors and family just as much as I do, and also was not scared away by the prospect of 4 additional children, some of whom, had some pretty significant needs.
So it appears school is going well for Zach at this point. What other supports helped Zach along his journey? What programs, what services, what resources were most valuable to you?
So early on, a lot of people talk about the waiver programs, like this family supports waiver. We were on the waiting list for a very long time. When
Us too.
We actually came up on the waiting list, that was very helpful to us. And even while we were on the waiting list, they did provide a small budget for respite services. And so it actually paid for a caregiver to come and watch the children so I could get a break. Very often I would go to those writing groups or to my classes.
Was it easy to find staff or a caregiver
It was
on that
very
program?
difficult to find staff. However, my sister is much younger than me, and so she was in high school, and she would do it. When she was in high school and college, my mom didn't ever become a caregiver, but she obviously helped a lot, especially while I was getting my degree.
Wonderful. Any other supports you want to talk about? I'm thinking more social supports. I know maybe you'll talk about Zach's incredible skill. Just a little bit, but I want you to share with the listeners those supports and services outside of school. I'm thinking like Special Olympics.
So we actually live in an area that has a really robust, it's called the Dad's Club.
Yes.
And so they have a division, it's all sports, but they have a division for individuals with disabilities as well. And so it started that they had, in the winter, they had bowling and you had to be 5. And so Elliot was 5 and Hannah was 6. And I signed them up for bowling to get them out of the house and to be around peers, but also not have anyone stare at you because your kid is having a meltdown. And Elliot, we found out much later, also has cerebral palsy. And so he could really only do about 5 frames of bowling before it just really exhausted him. And 2-year-old Zachary would be like, he couldn't even talk, and he would go up there and bowl for his brother. And because he couldn't technically be part of the league, but he ended up being the person that we kind of went to bowling for. And so it turned out Zachary was a very good bowler, even from a young age. And I tried to get him in a regular league, and people were not as welcoming to his behaviors. But then strangely, Special Olympics starts at age 8. And so I signed him up the first season he could do bowling. And at the county tournament, that 8-year-old bowled a 134 with no bumpers. And the next highest score was a 56. And parents weren't really very excited about having him there either. So Zach has thrived in Special Olympics, especially with bowling. And actually in January of this year, he bowled his first perfect game.
Oh, I remember that. So, I got to see video of that. Maybe we could share that.
We can.
With his permission. It's pretty cool, listeners.
And because of that,
unbelievable.
He actually, in high school, joined the regular bowling team, and his senior year was the anchor bowler for his bowling team.
That's incredible.
And that, I think, really helped his social relationships in high school.
That's wonderful.
Just a couple other things I want to make sure, because I haven't heard this, but my son Elliot had to, some of the technology that you need to manage diabetes is very expensive. And when he was young, it was new. And so it wasn't standard of care like it is now. But something called a continuous glucose monitor was incredibly expensive. And so in Indiana, we have something called Children's Special Healthcare Services, which actually can pick up additional cost of things. And so I remember the most expensive piece of electronic equipment that I've ever purchased was $6,000. It was a continuous glucose monitor, but he couldn't tell us when his blood sugar was too low. And if it gets too low, you could pass out. And it's very dangerous. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to buy this piece of equipment and then I'm going to give it to my 8-year-old and send him to school. But that fund helped us be able to afford that equipment for him.
We'll put a link to Children's Special Health Care Services in the show notes. So we're talking about Zach bowling. Were there other unexpected joys, breakthroughs with any of your kids that you want to talk about? It's a challenging journey, but what were some of those joys that stick out with you?
There is an organization called Erskine Green Training Institute that's in Muncie, Indiana. And
we'll also put that in the show notes.
I really felt like it was important for Elliot to go there. After he graduated high school with a diploma, he did go to college for a semester, and he just said, Mom, this isn't for me. This isn't working. This isn't for me. And so we kind of had to fall back. I said, that's fine, but we have to find something for you to do. And there was a program just starting called Same as You, which I know you're familiar with.
Yes. Madeline attends.
That was a day program of sorts, but it's very academic based and social based. And Elliot attended there for about a year and he loved it. But he also really wanted to pursue more independence. And so there's an organization in Muncie called Erskine Green Training Institute that I really wanted him to go to. And he did not want to go because it would require him living away for 10 weeks. And so they have a summer camp. And I said, listen, you don't have to go to the 10 weeks, but you're going to go to this 2-week summer camp. And we sent him, and he wasn't sure, but he could handle 2 weeks. So he went, and you drop him off on a Monday and then you pick him up like the following Friday. So it's almost 2 full weeks. And over the weekend, I received a text from him and he said, this is the best time I've ever had in my entire life. Thank you so much for sending me here.
Oh, that's lovely.
So just know he was spending time with friends. He was realizing that he could be more independent. So he finished that program and went back in the fall to receive training in materials management. So he enrolled in their program where you work at a hospital and you make sure that all of the nurses' stations are packed and all of the carts are packed. And so it's a logistics type of thing. And when he came out of there, he was able to secure employment full-time at a hospital that was just opening. And he has recently celebrated his 4th anniversary.
Oh, that's incredible.
Working there. He and his sister, his older sister, both work in medical. They both work full-time. And in September of last year, they got their own apartment. And that was a huge milestone and just so exciting for them that they are empowered to be in charge of their own lives.
That's amazing. So what we've been describing the last few minutes really is their transition from high school to adult life and how they got there, how they got to have a meaningful job, meaningful day, meaningful week. They have their own apartment. I really want to focus on transition right now, that transition from school to the adult world. Maybe we go back to Zach a little bit, talk about his journey leaving school. And folks, you can stay in school till 22, age 22 here in Indiana. Is that true across all states?
The national law is up to age 22, but states do interpret it differently. And in Indiana, you can stay in school until you're 22 or you earn a diploma.
Thanks for making that clarification.
So Zachary spent a little extra time in early years, but when he received his diploma at age 20, he was done. He could not go back to any 18 to 22 transition programming within the school system. So because of that, I knew how important it was to receive that training while you're in high school. And I think that that was something for my older children that was very challenging. We were pushing academics so hard because they were going to get a diploma and they're very bright and could do college, In fact, Elliot not returning to college had nothing to do with his GPA and everything to do with the fact that he just didn't see that that was supporting him in the direction he wanted to go. But we have found, and research actually supports this, that the individuals that are having the most difficulty securing employment are high school graduates with autism. And so I took that information to my special education director, and I'm like, we're supporting students who are not earning diplomas, or in Indiana now it's the alternate diploma. And I think that's great, and we should absolutely continue that. But we have this whole population of individuals with autism that are diploma track, and those are the kids that 2 years after high school, it's 67% are not enrolled or employed. And so how do we fill that gap? And so we started a program where we're supporting those students, and really just pushing the social skills and the vocational skills that come from, it's really all soft skills, like doing things you don't want to do and being resilient and working through challenges and problem solving. And then also that social interaction and communication piece.
So what did Zach do then? He left school at age 20. And
right.
Then what were his next steps?
So the biggest marker of having a job after high school is having a job while you're in high school.
Okay.
And so we had reached out to vocational rehabilitation, which is another program that I'm sure we'll put in the show notes.
We will do that. That's right.
We did that at the end of Zach's junior year, and he qualified and was working with a job coach, and actually had found a job at a bowling alley, and really, I mean, he was living his best life.
He sure was.
Because when he wasn't working, he was bowling. But at that time, he was also not driving. And so he worked there from March of his senior year until fall. And I really wanted him to go to the Erskine Green, the same program that Elliot had done. Elliot loved the social piece of Erskine Green and enjoyed learning about a career. Zach did not enjoy the social piece of Erskine Green because they only bowled once. And he did not think that was something he wanted to do. And I thought, well, if we can tie this to a vocational goal, I can get you there. How about we have you shadow your brother at his current job, and maybe you'll see that you like it. So his bowling alley was super supportive of Zachary, allowed his job coach to come in and support him. And also he had a lot of natural supports in the bowling alley. The challenges for having that job were that it was always at times that I was not at work, which was good because at that time he was not driving. So getting him there. But that also meant we didn't see each other very much because he worked all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and then a few evenings a week. And that also meant while I was at work, he was home bored and was texting me a lot.
I'm familiar with that. Okay.
And so that really impacted my ability to do my job because I'm very concerned about him at home. So I had him shadow Elliot, thinking, okay, then you can say you want to go to this program. You'll go to Muncie for 10 weeks. I'll take a vacation. And instead, what happened is that the boss called me within an hour after Zachary left and said, we have an open position and we would love to offer it to Zach. Would he be willing to apply?
Unbelievable.
So it does go back to those connections in the community. Like Elliot, thankfully, is an incredible worker. And so they're like, hey, if we can get that same work ethic, we really, And so Zachary did apply for that job. He quit the bowling alley. And he started working at the hospital, I think August after he graduated. So, and he works part-time. He works 4 hours a day, every day from 7 to 11. Vocational rehabilitation, once he got the job, set him up with driver's training, which is something that's very important he was very anxious about driving, and having a driving instructor that is trained in working with individuals with disabilities to help them with driving was a godsend to us. Both of my sons learned how to drive through a company that was contracted through VR. It was actually the same instructor. She was phenomenal.
That's wonderful. So a lot of successes here, right? Your two children leaving school, finding jobs they enjoy, having a meaningful week. What are some things, looking back, you think you did right? It might have been in high school or earlier. What things can you tell the listeners to do to help them with these transitions from being in the school and then leaving school and entering adult life?
So I asked my husband once, do you think I'm pushing them too hard? And he said, he's so wise. He said, if they're not falling, keep pushing.
Oh, I love that. That could be the title of our podcast.
But it was like, sometimes you do push too hard, or you have to make sure you don't push too hard. You don't
exactly.
want, this is
right
life,
amount of
and
pushing.
you're supposed to enjoy it as well, right? But I think that tenacity of just, okay, my kid loves to bowl, so what am I going to do to help support them in that love? My kid wants to live independently. I'm concerned about that. What can I do? So the place where my older two children live actually has 40 units that are set aside for individuals with disabilities. They don't live in one of those units because they're also rent controlled. Like you can't make above a certain amount of income, but they live at a place where everyone knows there are individuals with disabilities that live there. And I think that that's helpful because the community is large and very supportive of the individuals that live there.
Inclusive.
Yeah. And so that's the kind of people you would want your kids to be around. So I think it's just really not giving up on finding the answers you need. And if you get the answer that doesn't seem like it fits, I bet you just need to ask someone else, and they have a different approach. They might have a different resource or a different approach.
And this isn't in high school. This isn't their senior year of high school you start doing this, right?
Oh, heavens, no.
We want to start thinking about this early, right?
So nationally, the law says that you have to start talking about transition to life after high school at age 16. But in Indiana, it's at the IEP meeting just prior to them turning 14. So it's usually in 7th or 8th grade. And when I've talked to other parents, they're like, they don't know what they want to do with their life. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I say, oh my gosh, I completely agree. But you need to create a plan, and then it's always okay to change the plan as long as you change to a different plan, so just having that, this is the path we're going to look at. And
it can be before 14, right? And I know you did this. I did this. You want to start thinking about what they enjoy when they're 5.
Right.
And you want to instill, you want to create that independence, right? Let them do as much as they can do. That pushing you talked about, it doesn't have to be after 14. Start thinking about it earlier.
Exactly. I think it's important to remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so you need to be patient with yourself, but not so patient that you step away for too long, But, we don't have to be in a hurry. There's no rush. Kids have until they're 22. Even if they're getting a diploma, they could graduate at 22 with a diploma. And everyone thinks that all the other students are noticing how old someone is. No one cares. There are few people that are more self-centered than high school students. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but
no,
they have so much going on. They have their life and their relationships, and they're not busy policing all the other kids that are there. And so really, encourage your child to follow their passions. They are more resilient than you think they are. And so celebrate those small victories for sure, but also fight the small battles, because it is much easier to convince a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old that every day at the end of the day we shower than to start that when they smell.
Yeah, that's a great point. Start early.
And
create those habits early.
Hygiene cannot be overrated or overstated. Trust me. trust me on this. I really feel like those things, if you create those habits early on, that this is what we do, eating healthy, taking care of our bodies, getting some type of movement in, that will serve your child their entire life.
Agree.
If I could go back to the beginning and tell myself or someone else that's starting this journey, I think one of the biggest things is trust your gut. Like if you feel like something's off or something needs to be different,
Mother knows.
talk to someone, you know, and don't give up on that. There's a reason that that's there. And there's science behind that. I'm sure as a researcher, you can tell people.
Definitely. Act on it. You know your child better than anyone else. Definitely act on it. That gut feeling.
So my oldest bonus daughter got married in June. And so now I am a Gigi. And I have 2 grandsons. Aww. They are 9 and 7. I adore them. And my younger grandson, Jason, also has autism. And to be able to use my experience and journey with my own children to help my grandson and to help my new son-in-law as he parents and navigates this journey has been such a blessing.
Your son-in-law is such a lucky man.
That's right. He landed a Lueken girl.
That's right. And he has your support for his kid. That's amazing. Bridget, do you want to talk about your business?
I recently founded Empower Consulting, so it's very new, but the focus is really to help families that are at that juncture of planning for life after high school. My focus is probably in that 14 to 26 range, which feels like a very large range. But once you leave high school and the services that you've received for 12 plus years, it can feel a little bit like falling off a cliff. And there is a lot out there that can help, but it can be daunting to try and find it, especially while we're in school. You have this at least annual case conference where everything is presented to you and you're like, this is what you can do and here are your choices. And once you leave the comfort of school, it can be a lot more daunting to find all those things on your own. And so that is the goal of Empower Consulting, is to really help families through that journey.
Do you want to give any additional message to the listeners about some form of encouragement? We have families that are getting their children's diagnoses right now, right? The children are 3 or 5, hopefully younger, hopefully at 3, hopefully not 8, hopefully not 18. What words of encouragement do you have for them, or advice?
So I think that there's a saying out there somewhere that, God only gives you what you can handle, or, only special parents receive special children. And I think that is a load of crap. We are all just normal people doing the best we can with what we've been given or what we found along the way. And everything that you need to support this child is within you, and you can do it. So don't think, oh, there are those people out there. They must be different than me. Don't rely on anyone's social media. Do not compare yourself to what other people's highlight reels look like.
That's great advice.
I can tell you for everything that we post, there is a blood sugar that has hit the floor and caused everyone to stop. The meltdowns are not as frequent and are not as visible, but we still get some pushback on especially forced family fun. But it's really important to still do those things, but don't compare yourself to what other people's journeys look like, because no one knows what's going on in someone else's home. And then for those of us who are a little further on the journey, I would say that the thing that has helped me the most, it's actually interesting because it's a quote from one of my favorite artists, my favorite songs, but there's a line in a song that says, when you get where you're going, don't forget, turn back around and help the next one in line.
That's exactly what you did.
It's Tim McGraw, Humble and Kind. So I'm part of the Westfield Special Education Parent Advisory Council and the Westfield Family Network and the Advisory Council on Disability. And really, helping other families that are early in the journey, or especially at that critical time of planning for what life's going to look like after high school. I mean, that just really fires me up and gets me excited and makes me feel like everything that we went through is worth it if we can make it easier for just one other person.
Thank you, Bridget. You'll be an excellent support for these families, an excellent consultant. How can they learn more about the service? Should we simply put the site in the show
we'll
notes?
just link
And
it
they can reach out through that. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being here today. I've so enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks
and learning
so much
more
for
about
the
your
opportunity.
family that I thought I knew everything, but I learned some things. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart as well, talking about transition from being in the high school, being 18, 22 years old, and moving on to adulthood. So thank you for sharing all these important tips.
Thank you so much.
To learn more about the resources and organizations discussed, including Bridget's company, be sure to check out the links in our show notes. Thank you for joining us for Together Through It, Wisdom from Unexpected Journeys. If this episode touched you, please share it with a friend and subscribe to the podcast. And if you have a story you want to share, email us at togetherthroughit@gmail.com. That link is also in our show notes. Until next time, I'm Angela Paxton, reminding you that even when life takes an unexpected turn, we can find strength by being together through it.